welcome to the Lab Rat Foiler podcast. My name is Dan. I'm your host, and today we have Cynthia Brown with us. Cynbad, how are you?
Excellent. Thanks for having me on your show.
Look, I'm actually really thankful for you accepting this invitation. We don't know each other at all. We both froth on Parawinging, and I think that's how we connected. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining and your vote of confidence on something that you'd never seen before as well. Um, Cynthia, so before we get started on parawinging, and we're gonna, dive deep into that, I'm really always curious to understand about people's backgrounds in sport and where they come from. So, can you tell us a little bit of your story in sports and how you got to where you are today?
Well, it really started in 1979. I was in Connecticut where I grew up, and my brother was the captain of the Yale sailing team in New Haven. And I believe Hoyle Schweitzer drove around to different sailing clubs and gave out windsurfing rigs because he wanted people to get into the sport of windsurfing. So my brother got one of these rigs, and it was back, wood booms, wooden universal. You bang into the board, the whole dagger board you pull off and put on your shoulder. So anyways, I was visiting my brother and I was able to ride this windsurfer. I not really ride it, but struggle with it. And I was immediately hooked. And so from then it turned into a 20-year passion of windsurfing until 1999 when I saw the first kite. And I was like, oh
Yes.
my God. So what I loved about windsurfing was airtime and jumping. And when I saw the kite, I was like, oh my God, that makes airtime massive and hang time massive. I have to do that. So I basically sold my soul to the devil and arranged to become a kiteboarder. And my first and one and only lesson I ever had was with the godfather of kiteboarding, who is Corey Rosler. I don't know if you've heard of him. He was the first one really to kiteboard. He developed these frame kites, like big stunt kites, like 6-meter stunt kites with a rigid frame and like a 40-pound aluminum reel bar, which had
God.
a did you ever see one?
No, it sounds like a death trap,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. It was gnarly. So, anyways, it was like a 5-foot long aluminum bar with this reel that you could reel in the kite lines, the 2-line stunt kite, and you could let it out with a handbrake from a bicycle. So you launched and landed yourself, which was gnarly in itself because every time that kite, like if it went to the left, you tried to correct it. By the time you corrected it, it was already in a nosedive the opposite direction. And
So, are you just launching, like hot launching the thing, basically?
yeah, you stand on a beach and it's huge and you have to hold it and kind of toss it in the air and let the brake out. And this is all
Okay.
unhooked. This is way before we were hooked in. And also you have to add the fact that he had a slalom ski as his board of choice, and you had one foot in a binding, and then the back foot would go like in the slaloms
Yep.
in the back, and then he had a weight, a scuba diving weight on the tail to sink the board so that when you were in the water floating, trying to launch this kite after it hit the water and you had to reel it in and try and throw it back up, the thing would pivot and balance rather than being sideways with this ski on. So
Lord.
it was gnarly. But he was a ballerina on it. If you look back at the
Hmm.
archives, I mean, he was amazing. And then of course, the tube kites came out, the Whippago wing and all. And I saw those, and I asked somebody, like, what you're riding with that tube kite looks kind of easier than what I'm trying to ride. And they said, well, no, what you're riding is better because it's not so dangerous, because when it goes down, it doesn't relaunch. So
Yeah, it stops.
it stops. It sinks. It basically sunk. So that was the beginning of my kiteboarding career, which I became a pro kiter pretty much in 2005 with Ozone
Mhm.
sponsoring me, and I did a bunch of national competitions in freestyle and big air and course racing.
And
Um,
where was all this happening? Were you in Maui already, or was that somewhere else?
no, I've only been in Maui for 2.5 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm new here. This is like the ultimate dream. Like, because I'm a senior citizen, kind of at the end of my career of sports, I wanted to be in the best place in the world, basically, for wind and water sports.
Oh, good call. Good call. So where were you
So
before that when you were learning how to kite and
I was
doing
in
all those crazy things?
Mexico,
Mexico.
Baja.
Yeah, that's where you do crazy things.
Yeah, no
So
rules.
you've been through your windsurfing stint, your kite surfing stint. When did you start foiling?
I started, believe it or not, very early, probably. I tried to do the math. I think it was around 2010. Um, I was visiting Oahu, and at that time, that's when Laird Hamilton and I think Dave Kalama were all on the metal, the air chair with snowboard boots.
Yep. Yep.
And I was on Oahu, and my friend John Amundsen said he had one. Someone had one that he would sell me, um, and so I bought it. So I drug it to Baja, and had the click-in snowboard boots, and I was foiling behind a jet ski in hopes to like tow into something, but we couldn't find anything at that
Mm.
time. So it kind of sat in the garage until somebody told me, you can kite with that. And that must have been like 2010, I think. So I tried to kite with it with the snowboard boots and bindings, and it took like 4 people to launch me because I had to click into the board with the bindings on dry land, and the board weighed like 30 to 40 pounds, super heavy. And so 2 people had to carry me, and a third person had to carry the board and put me in the water, and then another person had to launch the kite and then hook it into my harness.
It's
And
harder than
so,
downwinding.
what?
That sounds harder than downwinding and car shuffles and all that logistic nightmare as well.
And then it was really dangerous because if when I crashed, if I was backwards, I couldn't flip the board around. It was so heavy, and I couldn't fly. If you flew the kite backwards, it's really hard. I don't know if you kite it, but
Yeah, that's where I started as well. I started kiting.
when you, if you're hooked in, you fly backwards, you usually pull the wrong way, and
Yeah, yeah.
it goes into a death loop.
So then you tried kite foiling for a little bit, and that was going
Well,
okay-ish.
no, that was on that air chair thing, and then
Yeah,
what happened was the course boards came out for kite racing, and they were more
right.
efficient than that air chair. They went upwind better, they went downwind better, they were faster. So I abandoned that whole thing and started riding a course board, and I was racing. and
Hmm.
and then I think it was 2015. I saw Johnny Heineken in Sherman Island, California, with a um, hydrofoil, and it was the Sword from France, and it was like the top end race foil, and not many people were doing it. And I saw that, and I went, "Oh my god, I have to have that."
Yep.
So I waited like 6 months, and I got my first race foil. So that was like 2015. So
Hmm.
I did kite race foiling on a national level, and then a little bit I did some races in Canada and Mexico, of course.
And then from kite foiling, you progressed on to winging, I'm
No, no,
guessing?
subfoiling. Sub,
Subfoiling first.
yeah,
Yep.
subfoiling was, I wrote it down because it was in 2017,
Yep.
and the wing. So I subfoiled, and then Slingshot came out with the first. Well, actually, when I was in Hood River, um, trying to learn to subfoil downwind in
Hmm.
2009, or it was like 18, or maybe it was 19. I can't remember. I saw Ken Winter come out at the hatchery. I was sitting out there, like struggling to get up on foil. And he came out with this homemade wing he'd made with a PVC boom, like
Yep.
strapped on, and he just came out of the water and just popped up on foil and zoomed past me. And I was like, oh my God, I need that. I go, hey, I was like, hey, can I trade you this like $500 carbon paddle for that thing in your hand? I gotta have it. And
Yep.
so that fall, during the AW Show in Hood River, Ozone had they had a prototype hand wing. And I begged them, and I was like, you can't leave Hood River without giving me one of these. So, I mean, I got to have it. So I started then.
Amazing.
And it was just
That's pretty early. That's
natural.
so early in the downwinding kind of world.
Oh, yeah. Like Dave Kalamo show up from Hawaii and Hood River, and I was just blown away. I thought, well, I can subfoil. I can do this. We just come home from Mexico. We've been subfoiling all fall. And my husband and I jumped in the river thinking we could be like Dave Kalama and paddle up on the river and go downwind. And it was gnarly. I only got up on foil when it was blowing 50, and it was completely by mistake. And I foiled all the way through the hatchery like once, and somebody saw it and they were like, oh my God, I haven't seen a woman do that. That's amazing. And I said, trust me, I've never done it. You'll probably never see it again. Like and I actually, then the wing came out and I didn't have to do it anymore because it was too hard.
Was that the hardest form of like discipline in foiling that you were exposed to?
Yes. Subfoil downwinding. Yes.
Yeah.
And so what happened was the wing came out in 2019 and I dove headlong into that and never tried to downwind subfoil again until moving here to Maui in 2022. No, yeah, end of 22. And I mean, this is just the Mecca here, and it's like, so I knew I had to do it, and so I ordered a Barracuda from Dave Kalama, and I put in my time, and it was a long, hard learning process, but I finally
It is, but it's worth it though, isn't it? Once you, I mean, there's nothing better than going miles downwind,
there's
carving
nothing
away.
better. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But it is
So
hard. I mean, my heart rate was going up to 100. I have a monitor so I could check it. It was going up to 186 BPM every time I paddle up. And in the beginning, you're paddling up like at least 13, 20 times at least, trying in a 9-mile run. And it was intense.
yeah, it's a brutal learning curve, sup downwinding. I went through it myself as well, and I would just put myself in these worse positions that I could put myself in, going downwind for 10 kilometers, not knowing how to get up. So it would take me like 4 hours.
Yeah.
And I would just float for that entire time. And after maybe 10 paddle ups, I was totally gassed. And I knew that my 11th was not going to be as strong as my 10th.
Sure.
And I'm like, I'm done. I'm done here. And I still had another 9 kilometers to go. So yeah, it is the toughest, but I'm glad I learned it when I did, because I think if the Parawing was out back then, I might have just skipped the whole paddle thing and went straight to the Parawing.
Probably. I agree. I'm so glad I learned it too.
Yeah.
I think I learned on really difficult foils, so my learning curve was worse probably than most. I learned on bike slab foils, which are really fast and efficient, but the low end is not like all the others out there.
Yeah. And is that what you're riding today, Mike's Lab?
It is, though I did, because of learning to paddle up, I guess it was last summer, my friend McFloey, Walter Hendricks?
I know of him. I don't know him as
McFloey.
in person or him. Yeah.
He's awesome.
I know who he is, though.
He just said, Cynthia, like, just try these foils and make it easy on yourself. So he gave me a full setup of Armstrong foils, and I was shocked. I was like, I actually got blown up onto foil without even paddling one time.
Yeah. Is that the HA series?
Yeah, the HA.
Yeah. They have amazing bottom end. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And coming from Mike's Lab, you would have been up in like 3 strokes. You'd be like, whoa.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Like, made my life so much easier.
So So after all that, like where did the parawing come into play? Like I've seen your Instagram account and you have videos of you going downwind on a black parachute thing. What is that?
It's a hobby rocket parachute. So
Yep.
during this whole process of learning to sup downwind, um, another friend of mine I saw at the harbor, and she had like a runner's drag parachute thing she was trying to get up in,
Oh,
and so I
yeah.
was like, there's got to be something to make this easier. So I actually firstly developed. It didn't work. I developed like a little Hawaiian sailing canoe um, sail on my paddle with carbon battens from windsurfers and an old wing I cut up. And I tried that. I mean, even Jeremy Riggs was like, "Oh, let me try it. That looks cool," but it wasn't big enough and it didn't work.
Yep.
So then my girlfriend, she really had the idea first, and then I adopted it. She told me about these hobby rocket parachutes. So I first started with like a 36-inch parachute, and I
Hmm.
was getting up on foil with it, and it was the tiny orange one that's on my Instagram account. And then later I went and got a bigger one, a 48-inch one, and with really high tech fabric and basically kite lines, so super tiny.
Yep.
Packs down into my little PFD pocket, and not only was it helpful, it was a total rush too. Like to be able to fly inside with less bumps and
Mm.
throw it out and drag myself, to like places I normally wouldn't, because the bumps are so tiny you can't paddle up. Um,
So what gave you that idea? Because that's like pre-parawing, pre-anything, and you're paddling yourself up with the paddle, and then once you're up, you deploy the parachute?
no, I do both. I eventually got good enough that I could have it out. I had it tied to my PFD,
Hmm.
and I could paddle at the same time. But the thing is that it moves around with the wind. It's not controllable like a parawing. So it
Yeah,
was like balance is pretty difficult. But on
100%.
places like Hood River or the south side here on Maui and Kihei, where the water's really tame, it was a no. It was easy as can be. Just I would throw it out, and I get enough momentum and start pumping my legs, and a couple flicks of the paddle, and I'd be up on foil. But then other times, like Maliko, it was harder to use because the water's really rough and comes from all different directions. Um, but at the end of the Maliko run is the harbor, and there's a gnarly flat section. The young kids just pump all the way into the boat ramp, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I'm 63. I'm not pumping to the boat ramp. So I would throw out the parachute on foil at the end of the run, and
Mhm.
basically drag myself in to the bow ramp. And it's like the parawing. You can't go straight downwinded it because
Yep.
you'll slack the lines. So I had to learn to edge and learn to read the bumps, because just like the parawing, if you are being drugged by the thing and you're downwinding and you go like in front of a bump, you slack the
Mhm.
wing. You got to know how, you got to read the bumps. So I can get on the back side of the bump or go into the front. It just depends on how much power you have in the wing.
That is so cool.
So
Because and that idea came from a friend of yours that said, "Try this," and you're
no,
like,
I actually
"Okay."
saw her one day. She went on a downwind with run with us, and I was paddling, and I saw her with this parachute and no paddle. But she was struggling.
Hmm.
But I just saw like, wait, there is potential here.
There's something there.
Yeah, and so I ordered it, and then I started using it. And then when I posted stuff, people were all asking like, where do I? Because they wanted a cheat code. They wanted
Yeah.
help for downwinding. So I told the Hobby Rocket company that they might be getting a bunch of orders, and they did. And I sent them a video of what I was doing with it so that they would understand, why they weren't rocket geeks ordering
Yep.
these parawings. I mean, these parachutes.
I love that story. And that's kind of like the essence of what we want to talk about in this podcast, those experiments. That's why we're called Lab Rat. It's all about those
Oh,
experiments and
okay.
being that lab rat and just exposing yourself to those new experiments and experiences. So that's really cool. I mean, and then once you continue to use that parachute and that was kind of working, where did you see the Parawing for the first time?
Well, obviously it didn't exist yet. And my friend Sam Reynolds, who I've done downwinders with, and you can see those videos on my Instagram as well.
Hmm.
Um, he, for this whole crew of us at the beach, we were all kind of obsessing over this downwind thing, and we talk about it. And I showed people my parachute, and Sam said, I have this great idea for something, but I haven't made it yet. And I was like, well, why don't you make it? Because he said, I used parachutes a long time ago on the water because he's here
Hmm.
on Maui. And I was like, well, you need to make this thing you're talking about. And finally he got motivated. I think I'm kind of because of me with the parachute. And he went home and it took him, he like sewed all night and sewed the bridles and everything and built his first pocket wing.
Love that.
And that was like, I don't a few months after I was parachuting. And so then we started doing downwind runs together, him with his pocket wing and me with my parachute. But and then I rode his pocket wing a few times, and I wasn't sold on it because, well, for one, it had two handles,
Hmm.
and I knew I wanted my paddle because for me, downwinding without a paddle was weird. Like that's what you
Yeah.
do. You have a paddle, and he was obsessed with these small boards, and I didn't see the light yet because I wasn't good enough on his pocket wing. So I was riding like an old sup, and then I rode my Barracuda. Um, and I was like, I can't imagine myself being 2 miles offshore of Maui with a little board and no paddle. Like I just didn't see the light.
Yeah.
So that was his path, and he actually gave me, like, as a team rider, he gave me one of his pocket wings, and I never used it because I was my eyes weren't opened yet. And then like 2 weeks before, well, I watched Greg Drexler from a distance testing different things, and he at one point had like a fly surfer peak
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
short
Converted.
lines he
Yep.
was foiling with, and it just didn't look cool. I mean, and we're all watching with binoculars from another beach, checking out what he's doing. And another time he had like a frame wing thing. So we didn't really see like anything too exciting. And then one day, like 2 weeks before BRM announced their Parawing, my husband and I were driving back from a downwind run, and we were driving past Hokipa, and I saw two white objects out in the water, and I was like, Steve, pull
Hmm.
over. Like, I think that's Greg with this wing thing. And so I pulled out the binoculars and I watched him, and I was in awe that he was going upwind. Like his brother Scott was on a wing and Greg was on his para wing, and they were going upwind at the same angle. And I was just like, oh
Mm.
my God,
Yeah.
tables have turned. This is cool. So I videoed them and I sent it to Sam, and I go, Sam, you got to start going upwind with your pocket wing
Yeah.
because they're going upwind. Like this is
Hmm.
crazy. And my parachute wouldn't go
Hmm.
upwind. The pocket wing wouldn't. I mean, Sam could maintain ground with his, but it basically was just yanking you downwind.
Yeah.
So that's
No, I love that because I think that that moment where for me I saw a similar thing, but it was in the videos when the BRM was launched, the upwind angles. And I was like, what on earth is that? Because like you, I've seen the pocket wing and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I had my son's little trainer kite. It was a 2.5 meters trainer kite. So I just grabbed the kite by the bridles one day and I took it out of my downwind board. And I'm like, oh, there's enough power here to get up. Like coming from kiting, you know what you need to feel to get up. But it didn't interest me to the point where like I'm gonna go out and get it because of that upwind ability. But as soon as I saw Greg's version, the BRM, within 5 minutes of watching a couple of videos, I went on his website and bought one,
I,
like immediately. But what do you think was so different? They're so close. It's like a 5% difference in the equipment that made 100% difference in what it became.
do you mean difference between Sam's and Greg's, or
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, because Sam was so close to what I think everybody wanted, but it was.
it's the handles. That's what
Mm,
changed it all. The two handles. The one thing I can say about Sam's two handle design, the wing, just when you want to put it away, you just go like twist your hand, and the power's gone. It's insane, and it
mhm,
just
mhm.
packs away. But it's complicated, and I had other friends try and learn it, and the minute you let go of a handle, it went through all the lines of the other
Yep.
handles, and it was really like they couldn't. I came from like ram air kites, so tangles don't bother me, but other people, they were scared of it, and so they steered
Mm.
away. And and Sam absolutely rips on his equipment, but it's so the having the one handle, everything concise, like that was, I think, the game changer for
Yeah.
BRM.
Yeah. It gave me something that was very close to kite foiling, which was my first type and discipline in foiling that I was like, oh my God, I can do so much with that. And yeah, look, we just have to thank everyone in Maui for putting themselves out there and putting money into it and developing in their time. And I know it's everyone's passion, but at the same time, it's a lot of effort to get a product like that out there. So hats off to everyone out there for sure.
And it's amazing that Greg, I mean, he really hit it out of the park with the first
Mm.
version. Even today, I don't want to name brands, but a friend of mine here has ridden pretty much the three that are out that we could get hands on here. He still goes back to the BRM, and he says it just friggin' does what we want it to do. You don't need all
Yeah,
these
and I'm
fancy bells and whistles and pulleys and
mm, yeah, I think less is more when it comes to this kind of gear, and I can see already a little bit of distinction between the brands on what they bring to the table, and the BRM is so good to pack down. There's
it's
nothing easier to pack
yeah,
down.
so
It's
good.
amazing.
I wrote it.
And where did you get your pink one? What's up with
Oh,
that?
I dyed it. I used fabric dye, tie dye, because
Oh, right.
I bought mine used. Believe it or not, I wanted one so bad, but I couldn't validate the cost. And here I am on Maui, and like I show up at the beach, and five of my friends have them, and they're learning. And my husband was gone at the time, and I was like, I can't go spend $1,000. Like this is too frivolous. Um, but a friend, a big Hawaiian guy, had bought the 2.9 used on
Mhm.
Facebook, and he tried, and it was too small for him. So he's like, well, you can ride my 2.9, and if you like it, you can buy it. And so,
Perfect.
and he bought it for $700, so I was able to get it for $700. And I felt, you know what, that's reasonable. I deserve it.
That is very reasonable.
But it was
I paid full I paid full retail plus tax plus shipping and I don't regret it.
no, and I tell all my friends too, like, just spend the money. It's so worth it. But
Yeah.
so I was fortunate I got a deal, and then our dirt is our beaches are like brown dirt from the
Mhm.
Hawaiian dirt. So my white 2.9 had so much use, it was looking dingy. And so my friend Elliot LeBeau did his first, and I saw them, and I was like, oh, I got to copy that. So I wasn't the first, but I'm the second. I
I
tie-dyed
thought
my
it was
wing.
I thought it was because, you wanted to be safe out there and have because when you are out there the white gets, pretty camouflaged in the white caps and stuff. So I'm like, "Oh, surely this is a safety thing."
No, it was dirty. I also like being, people know it's me, because now, there's a lot. It's gained in popularity. There's a lot of white wings out there
Mm.
today.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you use the Parawing today? What are you primarily using it for? Is it wave riding or downwinding or just everything?
Wave ride. Well, right now it's wave season,
Hmm.
and so it's wave riding, and of course downwinding. So I think this summer, when it's full on downwind season, I kind of get ADD and I'll need to mix it up. So I'll paddle some days and parawing other days.
Hmm.
But right now it's wave season. And if the wind is light, like really light, I'll still wing because it's too gnarly on a parawing. And my biggest
Yeah.
parawing is a 2.9. But if the wind's on and there's waves, I mean, I'm into parawinging it. It's pretty amazing.
And what is light for Maui standards? Because light in Maui is pretty much
Different,
blowing
yeah.
its tits off everywhere else. So
I I when it's averaging 20, I can ride a
20.
2.9
Yeah.
parawing.
Yeah.
If it's averaging
Yeah, that makes sense.
15, no, I'm going to go on a 3.6 meter hand wing.
Yeah. And I also don't think the Parawing, it comes alive in really strong wind, because in light wind, even if you have a 5, like it doesn't want to fly well. You know, it's huge, and the pack downs are just really, it's not meant for that kind of wind in my opinion, but I still have a 5.5 that I take out sometimes and play around with.
Shocking.
And it's enormous. It's a truck. But like in those days that it is light, I just take it out and then I'm practicing like tacks. I'm practicing things that when it comes to those 20 knot days, I'm, comfortable to throw a tack into a wave or something like that. But that's what I try to do on my low wind days, and if there's no waves to be had or anything like that.
Our surf
So do
is
you do?
pretty gnarly. Like if you
Yeah.
when you go down, I mean, I've actually been afraid a couple of times. So the parawing just ups the level of fear, because once it goes down, now you got like 3 steps to get it up, and you're getting pounded by surf. And one of my friends got hit a few times, and his parawing was driven down, and he couldn't pull. He could see, but he couldn't pull it up because it's it's
Full of
in
water.
the water. He had to swim underneath it and grab a wingtip to get it back up. Like,
Yeah, just to have it flow through the water and
uh-huh.
punch up. Yeah, I fell face first into mine once trying to pack it down in a downwinder. I fell and it just wrapped around my face like an octopus. And that was the worst feeling ever. Like, oh my God, this is how I die with the parawing. But
But
waves,
at least
look,
that's
waves.
yeah, that's
Go
downwind.
ahead.
Waves are just our next level.
It is.
Dangerous.
And like tell us a little bit about how you ride waves, because like going upwind, that's all fine. How do you navigate whitewash? How do you get out of a bad situation? It's not like a hand wing that you just pop up after you fall and you're out quick.
Yeah.
It's hard to get out of of the brake line and get free from that.
I just use common sense, and I try not to put myself in too risky of a position. I mean, recently a friend of mine I've never seen a parawing get shredded, but he just shredded it at 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
But getting rolled in surf and the foil ripped through the whole parawing. I've had it wrap around my ankle and my leash and been like terrified. But at least where we are, I mean, the wave, it's not the most powerful wave in Hawaii. It's a mushy wave.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of guys do wear kite knives because of it.
Yep.
And then I saw Alex Aguirre one day. He's always in the biggest surf. He's always been, like, for windsurfing, kiting, everything. And so he's parawinging. He's a maniac. Biggest set of the day. He's like, the wings wadded, and he's riding, and the wave just came and was collapsing and chasing him, and he couldn't get away, because you can't just throw it out and like a wing, you just go, oh my God, and boom, boom, get some power and go. With the parawings, no. And he just got destroyed. He said, like, his head went through the lines. I mean, he had to basically swim in to get everything sorted, to get the thing relaunched. I mean, it was gnarly.
Yeah. But it's the best fun of your life at the same time.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, yeah.
I could see it in your face. You're enjoying yourself.
I love it. The parawing, it's like, I say it's like base jumping, because it's just like when you surf a wave or whatever, and then you throw it back out and it just goes, whoa. And it's like, it's so cool.
Nothing like a good redeploy. But there's also those times where you redeploy and the thing is twisted 10 times around and you're like, oh God, here we go. But you get better as it goes. Do you guys do any upwind, downwinds?
Mm,
in Maui?
no, because we upwind for the surf break. I just find it too painful to really want to go upwind downwind. I would rather just go
Mm,
downwind.
yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
Sam was doing it to prove a point, I think, but I just, I don't know. I just, no. Right now it's wave
Yeah.
season, so we don't have to do that. But
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think, and just because where I live here is a bay, and we can pretty much downwind in any wind direction because we just go to different sides of the bay. And if there's no one around to take me on a shuttle or something like that, I've just been doing upwind, downwinds, or just going upwind and just doing like surfing a surf break, but a little bit of the bay that is really like the bumps pick up a bit. But everybody asks, how well does it go upwind? Does it go upwind as good as a wing? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it does as long as you're really powered. Like,
Yeah,
you need to be lit. Being underpowered is brutal for going upwind. There's just no margin on the Parawing, in my opinion. Like, it's better to be overpowered than underpowered. And then I totally believe in a harness. I don't go out without a harness. Even
really.
downwinding, the other day we went out and it picked up so strong. I was on a 2.9 and a Maliko run, and it was started blowing like 40, and I couldn't even get to my feet because I was so overpowered. Like the wings, pulling my arm up. Whereas usually I can hook in with a harness and control the power and like use two hands to get on the board.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I always ride with a harness.
Interesting. I let go of the harness a little while ago. It just became like a another tangle spot for me, and I'm just trying to get rid of anything that the lines get caught in. And I just said no hook anymore. I just go unhooked all the time, and even my Invisaleash I replaced by something that doesn't have a coil,
Yeah, the
because sometimes I
coil,
still.
the grabber.
Yeah, it's a grabber. It's a grabber. But there will be leashes dedicated for parawing coming out soon. I think someone will do it. Um, so let's talk a little bit about technique. We spoke about the hand wing, and I think a lot of people coming into parawinging might know how to wing. And how do you feel it is to get up on a parawing compared to a normal hand wing?
It's a lot harder. Um,
Yeah.
Especially, I'm not a spring chicken, so it's definitely harder. It takes a lot more balance and muscle, and the parawing doesn't lift you up like a wing.
Mm.
It's I mean, my husband is 75 and he's really intrigued by it, but I don't know if he'll ever do it because he sees how much effort it takes the rest of us how to get up with the parawing. It just takes a few more steps. It's harder.
And once you go and you go over that little bit of a hurdle at the start of understanding how it works, getting your balance on the board to the point where, you can lean on the parawing, lean on the board and things are not going everywhere. Is your pumping technique to get up on the board similar to a hand wing, or is it a little bit different?
Well, with a hand wing, I can pump the hand wing and my legs and get up really fast. Or I
Hmm.
can just pump the hand wing. But with a para wing, I find it's mostly in my legs. My wing is pumping just naturally, my hands,
Hmm.
like downwind paddling. But it's my legs doing the work and like bearing off and feeling a swell under the foil. It's a lot like downwinding. But what amazed me recently was getting up. I get up switch stance going out. That even the power of a swell coming in, if it was under my foil at the right time and I pump, like it acts
Hmm.
like downwinding, but the waves are coming the opposite direction and I can get up and
Nice.
it's the pumping of the foil.
I always ask myself who will have more advantage in learning how to parawing. Would it be a kiter, a kite foiler, or a kite surfer? Or is it someone coming from a hand wind background? What are your thoughts on that?
That's interesting because, well, I have friends that are parawinging that never kite it and they're good but they're coming from down foiling for wing foiling and subfoiling and downwind foiling. I think it's more of a, like, if you have downwinding and that pumping, it's an easier sport. It's not, I mean, in some respects, like the edging and going upwind helps if you were a kiter, and especially a kiter like from the two-line era, like me,
Yeah.
where you know that if you're overpowered, the only way to deal with it is to edge really hard and go upwind.
Yeah. Digging that rail
Yeah.
and hold that power. And yeah.
Which is funny because we're not digging rail, we're digging foil, but it's
We're
the
digging
same
foil.
principle.
Yep. I initially thought that the wingers would have a little bit of an upper hand, and because they do have that balance with the, you know, getting up on a hand wing is kind of similar. You being on your knees and then you pop up a knee and then you get up. And then I've seen people hold the Parawing for the first time that are kite surfers or kite foilers, and it takes them 10 seconds to understand how that thing works.
Yeah.
Because they have that instinct of where the pressure is on the bar. Oh, okay, this goes up, this goes down. Oh, okay, this is how you turn.
Right.
And within 30 seconds, they have the kite control. And I think wingers take a little bit longer to understand that, but they have that initial benefit of having a little bit more of that balance in control compared to a kite surfer.
That's true.
But everybody will have fun once they get out. They just have to get through that first little session.
Like, to figure out your first toe side jibe, if you're a kiter, it's more natural, because a winger, they don't fly the wing through the wind. Whereas the Parawing, like, I noticed the heel side was really natural, but to go into a toe side jibe, a lot of people forget to bring the Parawing to drive it through the window like a kite, because it is a kite. You can't just leave it behind and then power it up, because it'll rip you backwards.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've been exploring a little bit with kite loops and doing things like that to keep that power going.
Does it work?
It does. It's just everything in the Parawing happens in a split second. I think the kite, you have so much time. If you're doing a tack, you'll throw the kite up to 12, then you look back, and then you might loop it or not to generate that power. And it's a lot of, like, it's a much longer move. In Parawinging, you're turning, and then all of a sudden you kite loop, and your back is in the water and you're gone, because everything is so fast. It's so precise, and you have to be so, you have to be pitch perfect with it to ride out. So it's not 100% dialed in yet, but I'm trying to do tacks, toe side tacks, coming out with a kite loop that I just twist the bar in my hand pretty quick.
Because see, I've tried the toe side. A friend of mine got the flow wing, and his very first day, he was tacking both directions. And I've been trying on the BRM, and I get, like, some of the times, like 50% of the time I go around, and 50% of the time I get the wing ripped out of my hands. But I think because it's just so windy here. But
yeah, and it's so precise. You have to be so precise. And I think the flow gives you a little bit more, I think it's a little bit easier with the flow, because you could just ride it on the front lines and not care. And you kind of depower it a little bit easier. I think the BRM, you have to be conscious of always having a little bit of the brake line on, so you can ride through it. And that makes it a little bit harder, but it's still not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
I'm looking forward to Ozone sending me the pocket rocket. Hopefully I get it next week. And I'm hoping that one I can tack, because I feel really stunted not being able to tack. I've given up with the BRM, because I mean, seriously, the thing gets ripped out of my hands. Part of the time, a lot of the time.
I'm super excited about that Ozone pocket rocket. I think, given just the history of the brand and where they come from, and like all their R&D in paragliding, like it sounds like they have the right pedigree to come up with something really, really interesting.
Yeah. And then I helped them with the pouch design, so it should be pretty epic.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I hate all of the belts out there.
I'll just give it a tidbit, because I haven't seen it in person, but we did video chats and things. It should be more streamlined and be able to fit bigger wings in because of the stretch. That's all I'm
Yeah,
gonna say.
interesting. I love that. I think that is still a big area that has a lot of development to happen, and also depending on what kind of parawing you ride. I think the flows are notoriously
They're
a little
large.
bit bigger. They have more canvas in them, so it's a thicker material. So to pack that down takes an extra 10 seconds at least to get the air out, and then you need a bigger belt. But I'm still riding my BRM belt. And putting the 4.2, that's the biggest flow I can put in there. And it's like about to explode. But it takes time. It takes time to pack it down. And I don't even do that anymore if I'm not like going downwind. If I'm just
Right.
doing upwind, downwinds, or wave riding, I never stow it.
I don't
Like
stow in
fully stow.
waves either. It's not worth it.
Yeah. It's not worth it.
I stow it in downwinds, but that's it.
That's it. I think that's right. What are you currently working on, Cynthia? What are you
Oh,
like? We spoke a little bit about tax.
well, that's what I kind of stopped. I'm not really. I'm working on being a better surfer right now, but um,
That's a lifelong
I know.
project, isn't it? It's beautiful though.
I watch. Okay, I just want to skip forward to this, like this surfing part. Like I watched a couple of days ago. I was driving home from a downwinder, and I saw a BRM Parawing go into Hukipa. Like it was big. It was like 7 foot swell, and just shred it.
Is that Kai?
Collapse it. No, it was Kane to Wild.
Kane to Wild.
And to see him,
Another freak.
yeah, to see him surf a foil, like I don't care how big or how small the wave is, he just absolutely shreds. It's amazing.
And his style is just
That's what I mean.
unmatched.
Style, so good, so
Yeah,
casual,
just natural.
yeah. So anyway, the word is he's pretty hooked because he did 2 runs and he did it on a small KT Super K like my board, and he's just like,
Good board.
his mind's blown. Like to be doing Maliko, 2 miles offshore Maui downwinders on a 5'9", 7-pound board it's insane. I mean, you could go smaller, but for safety, I don't go smaller. In case something goes wrong, you got to paddle in.
You got to paddle in. And yeah, especially on a downwinder, I think it's good that you bring that up because there is a level of safety that we have to remind ourselves to keep to and adhere by, because I can't even imagine a beginner parawinger with a limited downwinding experience. They can get themselves in a really gnarly situation very quickly.
Yeah.
Not being able to come back to shore, paddling in on a tiny board. That takes a lot of effort and a lot of physicality to.
Like 3 days ago, the surf was so big. I don't know how many days. The days are blending together, but the surf was so big that we opted not to do a downwinder because it's just kind of silly, because if something goes wrong, you're in dire straits. And a paddle crew did go out and they were all good, but it was light at the top and one guy couldn't get up and he couldn't get in because the whole coast is just 10-foot Hawaiian surf. And so he ended up, I think, using his Apple Watch and calling 911. And the lifeguards had to launch a jet ski and bring him in through the surf because he could not get in, couldn't get into shore.
Yeah, that is gnarly. Our surf coast is definitely not as gnarly as that, but we have a couple of downwind runs that after a certain point, there's no exit and you're committed to it. And if you're on a small board and the wind dies, I even take a bigger Parawing with me sometimes because they are so small. You can just pack one in, but still, you know how it is. Sometimes even a bigger Parawing won't do.
Right.
But while we're in the topic about safety, I do have some questions about safety, and I think it's important for us to touch on it. What safety precautions do you take when you're Parawing? I see you're always out with a helmet, a vest. What else you got going on?
I don't always do the helmet downwinding because I find it annoying. When I have to paddle out of Maliko, my life vest hits me in the back. So lately I haven't been wearing the helmet downwinding, but I do wear a PFD and I bring a cell phone in a pouch. And from the island crossing events last year, I was required to have an EPIRB, a personal beacon. So I just happen to have that on my PFD because I paid for it. I might as well use it. I've never
Yep.
used it, but it's on my PFD. Um, and that's about it. That's about it. Just
Do you
PF
guys
and
do
bright
location
colors.
sharing? Yeah, bright colors.
Yeah.
Location sharing with anyone or anything like that?
No, but we all know each other's phone numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So, like if I go with a crew of 3 people, 4 people, I know their number, they know mine, and if there's a problem, we communicate. So I only have sharing with my husband.
Yeah, fair enough. Um, cool. Let's talk a little bit about you mentioned a word there a little while back that maybe not everyone knows, wadding.
Yeah.
So there's some terms coming because this is all new, right? So we say stow or depower, or there's a number of ways to talk about things. But what is wadding?
Uh, wadding is when you collapse your wing and wad it up into a smaller package. And what's funny is because the BRM has really been the only one until recently, a lot of these terms came up like taking out the trash because it looks like you're carrying a white kitchen
Trash
trash
bag.
bag. So when it's
Little
kind of
trash bag
flapping,
session.
what? Yeah,
A
it's
little trash bag session.
when it's flapping in the wind, it's like you're taking out the trash. And then another term someone else came up with was when you're throwing it out, it looks like we're making the bed because they're all white. Is they're like throwing sheets out, making the bed. Um, and then a lot of the terms that have come out, I can't share because they're kind of vulgar. Because it's all these guys and me, and I like shock value, so I tend to bring it down a level. And we come up, everything turns out sexual, like they've said about the whole pocket rocket and the Roger and
Yeah.
the D wing and stuff. So our terms, like, I don't even want to talk because you're not going to edit it out, so I can't say it. What we
No,
came
we
up
don't
with,
edit. We don't edit anything in this podcast. Everything
good,
comes out,
about
and however it comes out,
how we collapsed the wing was pretty radical. Like I just can't
Well,
share that, but
I'll ask you in some DMs after because I do want to
yeah.
know what they are.
Okay.
Um, let's talk a little bit about the gear that you're riding. So you mentioned the KT board. Is that a custom or is that just off the rack?
It's a custom because I'm 130 pounds and I like light. So I tried production boards, the same dimensions, and they were just too heavy with inserts and, production quality. I want it custom. But the other thing is, like Parawing, you can ride anything. And I rode my wing boards and I rode my downwind boards. But I really think Parawinging, just like any other sport, it needs its own board. Like it has its own
Mm.
needs. For instance, you need that kind of mid-length takeoff with a little surface speed. But if you have too long a board, then it's a problem because you have too much speed and you get out of control and then you run through the lines of the Parawing.
Yeah.
So
So
this,
what size board is working for you at the moment?
well, and I could go smaller, but I got this because I just wanted one for offshore and safety. I have a 5'9" by 19 65 liter KT,
Mm-hmm.
and it's 7 pounds. It's really sweet.
Nice.
And KT's their whole new lineup of the Super K that
Mm-hmm.
Kane DeWild developed. They're amazing. They just like leap off the water. I've never had a board like this.
Yeah, I am actually considering what will be my next board. I ride a 5'10" by 18 85 liters, so that's a 1-to-1 weight to volume ratio for myself. And I love it. It's easy, but I want to go a little bit lower on the volume just to have a thinner board, possibly a touch wider to distribute that volume a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking something, it could be even the same length, a 5'10" or 6'0" max. I wouldn't go over that. By 19 and a half, around 60 liters. That's what I have in my mind for my next one.
That sounds good. I could do
Yeah.
less liters. I wouldn't go narrower than 19. I just, where we are, I mean, it depends where you're riding. Like Hood River, you could get away with a 40 liter,
Anything.
anything, because it's
Yeah.
safety on both sides. It's predictable. Everything's
Mm.
going the same direction. Maliko, it's just sometimes it's like I had a 9 by 17 stand up Kalama that was
Hmm.
amazing at the top, but if I went down off foil in the middle of a 9 mile run, sometimes it took me half an hour to balance on my feet to paddle it
Yeah.
up because the water's going all different directions and it's too chaotic. And
Mm.
this 5 9 by 19 65 liter KT I have, I've been out there like even just 3 days ago. I had 2 downwind runs on a 1.8. I mean, that's windy. It was blowing up to 50. And so you can
Jesus.
imagine when you come off foil, the ocean is just, it's a mess. It's not
Yeah.
clean. Anything narrow, I wouldn't be able to get up on anything narrow, I don't think. It's just too hard.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think in low wind you can get away with anything, but the stronger the wind gets, the conditions out there get really gnarly just to even like kneel on the board.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so
Okay, that's cool to know because I'm
again, that's
trying to
why I
figure
wear a
out.
harness, because when it was that windy on the 1.8, I could stabilize the board. I hook in, I mean, I posted a video on it on my Instagram just at a ka day, but I hook in and I let the wing make sure it's flying right, and I get enough time to use both hands because it's just like out, it's victory
Mm,
sea out there. I mean, the swells are double overhead, plus all the
yeah.
little mini chops going from all the other directions. It's intense.
Yeah, I struggle sometimes on this mid length that I have because it is 18 wide, and if it's like 25 30 knots, it's messy as well in the bay. It's not clean. Like 30 knots is strong anywhere, and conditions get a little bit gnarly. So I'm thinking if a little wider would help me out a bit.
I
And what size?
believe in that.
Yeah, what size foils do you ride normally on like a wave riding day or something like that? Well, what's your quiver? Give us your full quiver. What do you have?
Well, I have I'm obsessed with my Mike's Lab 825, and I call it, it's a chubby, like he made it, because Mike, all those foils are handmade.
Yeah.
It's a little bit thicker leading edge, so it's got a little more low end, but
Hmm.
by industry standards, it has basically no low end. It's but I can pump that up. I've paddled it up, and it's a little above my pay grade. I can get it up,
Hmm.
but it's scary because I don't want to have to get it up more than once. But
Yeah.
parawinging is another case, so I can parawing it up easily, and it's got the speed and glide. It's insane. But for like if I want easy, I ride the Armstrong 880,
Yeah, that's a good one.
and that's what I was paddling up by the end of last year. That was my go-to paddle up downwind foil. When I was paddling it, I'd pair it with the 180 tail because I
Hmm.
find it's just easier. It's got some low end, but then it didn't feel fast enough on parawinging it recently on Malika runs. So I put the 140 tail on it, and it sped it up, and it was like amazing. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I would think that the 180 tail would be a little draggy for those conditions in Maui where you're getting
It
offshore
was,
and getting
but
the.
I got rusty at reading because we haven't downwinded in a while. So I feel
Mm,
rusty at reading the bumps, and I wanted, because I like to put my wing all the way away. And then to me, that's the ultimate commitment. Like you can't, there's no paddle cheat. There's
hmm.
no,
True.
there's no like, you got to pump your way through. I find it actually harder than downwind subfoiling in that aspect. Like my pumping has gotten so much better now that I parawing versus supping.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think people don't think about that enough because they say, oh, it's easier to get up, and it is. But once you're up, you don't have the paddle for that. You could paddle pump for, you know,
You
however
can
long you
paddle
want
pump your way out of so many spots, and especially if you like
out of anything.
decide to chase, and
Yeah.
you're just like, oh, I'm chasing, I can't get it. Well, you just go put, and you can get it. With a parawing, you like, I mean, I can't do it. I can't catch it, so I gotta remember. I was remembering like, oh my god, Cynthia, come on, turn
Hmm.
back.
Hmm.
But so you're right, and I like, so I went to the 140 tail, and amazing. I got like 2 miles an hour faster on my
Yeah.
fastest time, and it was still forgiving.
What kind
Um,
of times are you doing on a one? Do you count by kilometer or by mile?
Mile, but I was just talking about my fastest speed. I don't,
Oh, top speed.
yeah, top speed, because to me, I don't really care about getting to the end the fastest. I want to surf the most waves. So I just care about how many times I come off foil. As that's how I
Do you
judge.
still care about that with the paddling even? I stopped caring about that when I started paddling. With the paddle I did. When I used to run with the paddle, I was like, yes, that's what I want to do and carve and all that stuff. When I got the parawing, I'm like, I don't care if I fall 'cause it's so easy to get up. I started not thinking too much about falling, and I'm like, I'm just going to rip turns here as hard as I can and fall because it's so easy to get up. And I kind of let go of that whole acing run mentality of downwinding a little bit.
I didn't. I can't. I haven't. Oh, because well, also because Malika, like when you fall, like getting up, it's not that easy because it is chaotic. And I
Yeah.
don't know. I want to be able to do the whole run without. But it is kind of a contradiction. I don't want to have to get back up. I want to do like a clean, dry run, but I want to carve a lot of turns. So it's
Yeah.
I find when I'm on my downwind board, I'm not I'm running with inertia and
Mm.
going more downwind. When I'm on the small board with the parawing, I don't have that inertia, and so I I'm more of a surfer by virtue of the sport and the board, and I definitely am slower with the, but I don't care because it's about surfing and having the most fun.
Yeah. It's incredible how much difference it makes when you go from a downwind board to a mid length. Your mind just says, I have to turn this. It's
Yeah,
almost rude not to
yeah,
turn this thing as hard as I can. And I remember I have, I think, like my couple of like 10 sessions or whatever, like my first sessions all uploaded, something that I wanted to do, just like show the good, bad, and the ugly of just starting out. And the first time that I was on that 85 leaderboard going downwind, I think I was on a 850 code foil, the S series. So it's not even a high aspect wing. It's a 9.5 aspect ratio. It's kind of like an average one. And I just said, oh my God, here we go. This
yeah,
is what I always wanted to experience: small board, small foil, and surf, because we live in a bay.
yeah.
So we don't have waves. This is our surf is doing whatever we can in the bumps in the bay. So when I had that opportunity, I was like, yes, I need to just rip as hard as I can on this. And I feel like downwinding to me now is more about turning and finding speed that way rather than going up and over or
Right.
something like that. It's just really maintaining that flow, and you get in sync with the ocean and the speed of the bumps, and those 31st seconds, they're like, okay, I know where I'm at. And then you're off.
It's so cool. I wish everyone could experience it. It's friggin' insane. Like I can't even wait. I had a knee injury in July, and I'm still handicapped a little. I have a torn meniscus, and I was gonna have a procedure done on it. And I was like, well, what 2 months can I take off? And people were like, oh my God, take it off in the summer because there's no waves. And I was like, are you kidding? Summer's downwind season. Like to
Yep.
me, being out 2 miles off the coast of Maui with your friends in 80-degree weather, like for 9 miles of surf, I would rather do that than ride regular surf any day.
Yeah, there's something so special about that. And I think having the parawing also allowed at least my crew here to stick a little bit closer together. When you're in the
Oh,
paddle, sometimes you just go, you get up, and like you said, you don't want to try to get up again. So if you're going, you're going, and you might see people for like a minute. With the parawing, we're riding together for the whole time.
it's so much more fun.
It's playful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where do you see parawinging going like this year? It's
Well, I think, well, first off, this summer in Hood River is going to explode.
yeah.
A lot of my friends that come here and go there, that had new downwind boards on order from my friend Frank, who lives right next door. they've all canceled their orders, and he's making them Parawing boards, like 50, 60 liter
Beautiful.
mid-lengths instead of downwind boards. And Maui also, there's a lot of people that wanted to downwind, but knew they weren't going to put the time in to learn to paddle. They're all going to be in on it. And I just think it's going to be so cool. We have a WhatsApp group now, the Parawing Posse on Maui. So
Ooh.
for downwinding this summer, and shuttling and stuff.
It's on when a WhatsApp group is spun up by someone. Then it's a thing now.
Yeah.
Are you going to Hood River this year?
I think my husband and I are talking about going for like 10 days, maybe mid-July for my friend Kenny, like just to see friends and stuff. It's pretty hard to leave here though, because it really is just like game on every day here.
Yeah.
But
I haven't been to Hood, and I'm desperate to go to
you
Hood
haven't
River.
been there?
I haven't. It's been 2 seasons that I've been like, oh, this is the year, because of family or whatever. Like I changed jobs as well, and I'm like, I can't do it now. I'm like, oh damn. But this year my leave block is in July.
Oh, what, like when? July?
The whole of July.
Oh, okay.
I have the whole month off.
Oh, okay.
So I have to go this year.
That's an excellent time to go because it's not cold, and it's not like the heat waves can come in August and shut the wind down. So July is the best time in my opinion. I lived there for 6 years, so that's how I know it so well.
Do you think it's worth going down for the AWSI and whenever it's going to be, August, September? Or...
It's usually September. As you probably saw from last year, the wind can be non-existent. You just never know. But it was still fun because it was glassy as can be, and we were all like demoing the foil drives and stuff. AWSI is just cool because everybody in the industry's there, and it's a great party. It's a great vibe. It's worth going. I wouldn't go for conditions. I would go for the event. Do you know what I mean? The
people,
industry.
the hangout, the social. And who are you looking up to in Parawinging today? Who do you love to watch ride in your local spot or anywhere really?
Well, it's Greg and Scott Drexler just killing it. I mean, they've been doing it. And Sam Reynolds, they've been doing it the longest, and and they've all like been here on Maui forever, so they know the waves and they know how to ride. They're just beautiful to watch. And then when I saw Kane go into that Parawing at Hokipa, I was just like, my mind was blown. I mean, I wouldn't have the nerve because I was big. Windsurfers are doing back loops and front rolls, and he just goes and just like, it was big. It was way out of my pay grade.
Are they doing anything that is exceptional, like in terms of their technique in depowering, stowing, wadding? Are they doing anything different, or is just their riding the wave? No,
it's just their riding.
Yeah.
Although, like, Greg has a special flair about the way he, like, well, I don't know if you watch JD Follow Cam, but there's a lot of videos on YouTube, so you can see Greg ride. He just has this. He was like that kite foiling too. He just has this special flair about him and style, and he's good to watch.
He has like an upriding. He's not like surfy. He's just standing there effortlessly.
Yeah,
and
he's like he's a dancer. He's not. He's not like a shortboarder. He's just like he's a glider dancer, and his brother's the same way. They're just nice, styly. And Kane too, styly, not all just killing it.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm with you. I really enjoy people that just make it look easy, and then you try it, you're like, oh god, it's not that easy. They know what they're doing. So we're almost wrapping up here.
And Nick McFlowey, of course, Walker Hendricks. McFlowey.
What is your favorite thing about the Parawing? Like, if you were to just say, this is why I like it, what is trying to sum up this Parawing experience for people that are getting into the sport? What is so good about it? Why are you hooked on it?
So minimal. It's just this tiny, like, if you looked at my van, my husband's still winging and I still wing in the light winds. It's just like wall to wall. There's just wings lined up along, and then they're all his. And then me, I have these two little tiny bags, these two little bags. Like there's my quiver. Like I could pack it into my backpack. That and it's just a rush. Like the power that you have, all of a sudden, the immediate just poof, you put it out and you have power. And then when you don't want it, you just go and you have nothing. And it's just so cool. It's so minimalist. I just love it.
I'm with you. I think it's hard. I sold all my wings, my hand wings.
Yeah.
And for me right now, if it's winging conditions, I'll be parawinging. And and then there's everything else. There's surfing and all of those are still relevant, but if it's winging conditions, I'll be parawinging. Absolutely.
I get it. I just, like I said, some days we're at the beach, and I just don't have a bigger Parawing yet. 2.9 is my biggest, so I have no choice. If I want to go in the water, I have to take a hand wing if it's light.
And look, I'm an advocate of just doing whatever's good for the day. So I'm pushing parawinging now because it's new and it's exciting, but I don't want to be riding a 5.5, On a day like that, I would much rather take the kite and do a kite foil and rip on that. But it's the novelty right now. It'll subside eventually.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, we don't know. So the last question here, and this is, again, for people starting out and people that want to get into the sport. What's the one tip? It could be riding tip. It could be gear tip. It could be condition tip. What would you tell someone right now that wants to get into parawinging?
Don't try and learn in light wind. You need wind. Like 20 mile an hour, I think. Maybe less if you have like a Barracuda board, but it's just too hard because the wing, you aim towards it and it falls in the water. And I say start in solid wind. And
that's fair.
And I guess use a bigger board and foil to start maybe, but I only used a bigger board because it was so light and I only had 2.9. When I learned, it was like blowing, I don't know, 17 or 15 and I had a 2.9, so I used my Barracuda.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip. I think low wind parawinging is the devil.
It's extreme.
For someone.
Low wind in any sport really separates the wheat from the chaff, in my opinion. So even like low wind kite foiling, I could go out in the day and kite foil in no wind when others couldn't because I'd been doing it so long. So
yeah,
I can parawing in lighter wind now than I used to be able to, even on a 2.9, just because my skills gotten better. But to learn in, light wind is the hardest thing to learn in.
How are you jibing in light wind? I find it such a nightmare to jibe because you basically just run into your parawing. There's nothing pushing it forward, and you're just matching the speed of the wind when you're in the middle of the turn and the thing just falls on your head.
Well, speed, and I don't bring it over. I drive it through like a kite. When I was kite surfing in light winds, I would drive the kite through in front, low and in the power zone. And then carve hard. Like, don't go towards it, but speed and carve, you know what I mean? Just make it faster to create a parent wind.
Yeah. Yeah, if you keep it at 12 or high, you're just going to run it. You're just going to wear it.
Well, I noticed the flow, it's easier to ride it, to jibe it high. Whereas the BRM, it likes to be driven like through the front, for me, through the front of the window, unless it's super windy.
I love it. Those are great tips, Cynthia. Look, thank you so much for your time. It's been almost an hour and 15 minutes now.
Okay.
And it feels like 20 minutes chatting about foiling. We could just chat. But look, again, thank you for your time. It's so nice for you to make time for this. And, your level of froth and your level of writing is just unreal. And studying for this interview, I was just going through your videos and I'm like, oh my God, what haven't you've done. You've done it all. And seeing you ride the Parawing now with so much stoke says a lot about this discipline. So thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for, finding a female athlete worthy of your podcast.
Oh, I have more on the list.
Okay.
And I think you will love to meet them eventually. And we're planning a trip to Hood. Maybe everybody goes in July. And if you're there, let's catch up.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Thank you again, Cynthia.
Okay. Bye-bye.